My wife claimed she was staying late at work for a promotion. I brought her dinner one night just to be sweet. But when I got there, her car wasn't in the lot. Her assistant said, she left hours ago, with some guy in a Lexus. I drove around all night until I found them, parked outside a motel. The next morning, I cooked her breakfast like nothing happened. Then I casually slid the motel key across the table. "You dropped this," I said. Her face went pale. "I'm 34 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I've been married to Michelle for almost 7 years. She's 32. No kids, just us and our dog, Max. Michelle and I met through mutual friends at a 4th of July party. She had this laugh you could hear across the yard, this huge bright smile, and the kind of energy that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. I fell hard. We dated for a few years, got married in a small ceremony out near Hocking Hills, and bought a little 2-bedroom house on the east side of town. It wasn't perfect, but it was home. Michelle works at a marketing firm. She's good at what she does, real good. She's always been ambitious, but it never came before us. Or at least, that's what I thought. About 6 months ago, things started changing. She started working late. First it was a couple nights a week. No big deal. I get it. Big projects, tight deadlines. I was proud of her. Proud that she was trying so hard to move up. But then it got worse. She stopped coming home for dinner. She'd say she was stuck in meetings, or finishing a pitch. Some nights she wouldn't get home until midnight, dragging herself through the door, looking exhausted. I'd be sitting there on the couch with cold leftovers, telling myself, it's just temporary. She's working hard for us. I trusted her. I swear to God, I trusted her. One Friday night, after another lonely dinner, I decided to surprise her. I figured I'd bring her a hot meal, her favorite wine, maybe sneak a little note into her bag. Something dumb and cheesy, but heartfelt. I wanted her to know I supported her. I made chicken parmigiana from scratch. I even wrapped it up nice, double-checked the container so it wouldn't spill. I grabbed a cheap bouquet from Kroger and headed downtown. The firm is in one of those glass buildings right off Broad Street. I pulled into the parking lot, and stopped cold. Her car wasn't there. Not just parked in a different spot. Nowhere. I circled the lot twice, thinking maybe I missed it. Nothing. That little voice in my head started whispering. She's probably running errands. Maybe she's grabbing coffee. Maybe a client meeting. I went inside anyway. Her assistant, Rebecca, was still there. Young girl, early 20s, pink hair, always looked a little stressed out. She looked up when she saw me and froze for a second. Like she wasn't expecting anyone. Like she didn't know what to say. "Hey, Mr. Davis," she said, forcing a smile. Michelle's not here." I blinked. Not here? I thought she was working late. Rebecca shifted in her chair, glancing at the clock. She left a while ago. With a guy. Black Lexus. They seemed close. My mouth went dry. I managed to croak out a thanks, and stumbled back to my truck. I just sat there for a minute, hands on the steering wheel, heart pounding. I had no plan. No clue what to do. So I did the only thing I could think of, I drove. I drove around downtown, past the coffee shops, the bars, the little diners we used to go to when we were first dating. I didn't know what I was hoping to find. Maybe I'd see her at a restaurant, maybe she'd be sitting with a client, laughing, and I could tell myself Rebecca was wrong. But at around 10:30, I found them. A shitty little motel off I-70. Neon sign buzzing, a few cracked parking spots, half the windows boarded up. And there it was. The black Lexus. Parked right by the front office. And there they were. Michelle. And some guy. Tall, wearing a cheap suit, laughing like he didn't have a care in the world. His hand slipped around her waist like it belonged there. They went inside together. I sat there in my truck, staring at the door. I could have stormed in. I could have punched the guy out cold. I could have screamed at Michelle until my throat ripped apart. But I didn't. Instead, I waited. I waited for 4 long hours, until the door opened again. They stumbled out, hair messy, clothes rumpled. She kissed him. Deep and slow. Like it wasn't the first time. Like it wouldn't be the last. I watched as he drove her a few blocks toward home, dropping her off on a corner like she was some dirty secret. I followed her from a distance as she walked back to our house, humming to herself. When she came through the door, she smiled at Max, gave him a pat on the head, and climbed into bed next to me like nothing had happened. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. The next morning, I got up early. I made breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, eggs. Her favorite. Set the table real nice. She came downstairs, yawning and rubbing her eyes. "Wow," she said. "This is amazing. What's the occasion?" I smiled. Just felt like doing something nice. We sat and ate. She chatted about random things, work drama, TV shows, plans for the weekend. Like everything was normal. Halfway through, I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the motel key. I slid it across the table, right into her lap. "You dropped this," I said. Her face went dead white. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "I can explain," she whispered. I stood up. "Don't bother." And I walked out the front door. When I walked out that door, I didn't really have a plan. I just knew I couldn't look at her. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I drove around for a few hours before ending up at my brother Matt's place. Matt's a no-nonsense kind of guy. Divorced young, no kids, always told me marriage was a trap. I used to laugh when he said it. Not anymore. Matt didn't say much when I showed up at his door looking like hell. He just handed me a beer and pointed to the couch. The next few days were a blur. Michelle kept calling. Texting. She started out apologizing. Then she moved to begging. Then blaming. Then apologizing again. The cycle was ugly. She said she made a mistake. She said she was lonely because I worked too much. She said it didn't mean anything. Same old lines you hear in every story like this. I didn't answer. I needed time to think. But thinking just made me angrier. I thought about the nights I sat alone at home waiting for her. The money I spent supporting her while she chased her career. The talks we had about starting a family when things settled down. All the things she threw away for some sleazy guy with a Lexus and a cheap motel room. And then a part of me snapped. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to make sure she felt what it was like to lose everything. First step, I called a lawyer. Matt recommended his guy, a tough old bastard named Ron Keller who didn't mess around. I told him everything. Ron listened without blinking, then said, "Good news is, Ohio's a no-fault divorce state. Bad news is, if you want leverage, you're gonna need more than just a motel key." So I went digging. Every text, every email, every receipt. I pulled our cell phone records. I found hidden conversations. Long ones. Flirty ones. Dirty ones. Turns out, the guy she was sneaking around with wasn't some random stranger either. He was her boss. Mark Sullivan. Married. 2 kids. A dog. A house in Dublin. Real piece of work. It wasn't just cheating, it was an office affair. A scandal waiting to explode. Ron smiled when he saw the evidence. "This is gold," he said. Second step, I set the trap. I agreed to meet Michelle at the house a week later. She cried when she saw me. Threw her arms around me. Tried to kiss me. I pushed her away. "Save it," I said. "We need to talk business." She sat there, trembling, while I laid out the papers. Divorce. I wanted the house. I wanted the car. I wanted half of her retirement account. At first, she fought it. "You can't do this," she cried. "You don't understand, Mark's leaving his wife. We're gonna be together." I almost laughed in her face. She really thought the guy was gonna leave his family for her. I didn't say anything. I just slid a copy of the emails across the table. The ones where Mark called her a fun distraction and said he'd never risk losing the kids over a fling. Her face crumpled. I could have ended it right there. Could have walked away with the house, the car, everything. But it still wasn't enough. Not yet. After Michelle realized Mark wasn't leaving his family, she completely broke down. She showed up at Matt's place one night, banging on the door like a lunatic. Crying so hard she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," she screamed. "Please. I'll do anything. We can fix this." Matt opened the door just enough to look at her and said, "Go home, Michelle," then slammed it shut. I didn't even get off the couch. After that night, her texts changed tone. No more begging. Now she was angry. Vicious. Telling me I was ruining her life, that I was overreacting, that every marriage has bumps. I ignored her. But inside, I wasn't calm. I wasn't at peace. I was planning. Here's what I knew: Mark had a wife named Vanessa. Vanessa was the type who posted "family first" quotes on Facebook every other day. Mark's company had a strict policy against relationships between supervisors and employees. If I wanted revenge to really burn, I had to hit all 3. First, I reached out to Vanessa. Anonymous email. Screenshots attached. Subject line: "You deserve the truth." I didn't hear back right away. But a few days later, Matt called me at work. "Dude," he said. "Check Facebook." Vanessa had posted a long, angry status. Something about betrayal. Something about losing 2 snakes at once. Pictures of her moving out of their giant house with the kids. Boom. Mark's life? Shattered. But I wasn't done. Second, I contacted the HR department at Michelle's firm. Again, anonymously. I attached the screenshots. Texts, emails, motel receipts. All clearly showing a relationship between an employee and a direct supervisor. It didn't take long. Michelle got called in for a review. Then suspended. Then fired. Mark? Same story. Turns out screwing around with your married employee in a sleazy motel isn't great for business. Especially when you're high enough up the ladder that your firing makes the local business news. I printed the article out and mailed it to Michelle's parents. No note. Just the headline. By the time the divorce was finalized, Michelle had lost everything. Her job. Her fake future with Mark. Her reputation. Her relationship with her family. She ended up moving into a crummy 1-bedroom apartment across town. I kept the house. I kept the truck. I even kept Max. There was no way in hell she was getting our dog. And me? I didn't celebrate. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel bad, either. It just felt empty. Like scraping out a rotten tooth. Necessary. Ugly. Final. After the divorce was final, I thought maybe I'd feel better. Maybe I'd wake up one day and the weight in my chest would be gone. But it wasn't. It just changed. I kept the house, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Every corner had ghosts. The kitchen where she used to dance while cooking. The couch where we watched movies curled up together. The bed where she used to whisper she loved me right before falling asleep. Max kept me company, but even he seemed sad. He sat by the front door every night for weeks, waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. Sometimes I wondered if I went too far. Maybe it would have been enough to just walk away. But then I'd remember the way she smiled when she walked into that motel with him. How easily she laughed. Like I didn't exist. And the anger would come back. As for Michelle, her life stayed wrecked. After losing her job, she bounced from temp gig to temp gig. Nobody in the Columbus marketing scene wanted to touch her. Word spreads fast. Mark's wife cleaned him out in their divorce. Took the kids, the house, the dog. Last I heard, he was living in some shitty bachelor apartment and working freelance gigs off Craigslist. Michelle tried dating again, but it didn't go well. Friends we used to share dropped her one by one. People who once called her the life of the party suddenly had other plans. Her parents were polite but cold. Ashamed. She even tried reaching out to me once. Sent a letter to the house. She wrote about missing Max. Missing me. Missing the life she threw away like an idiot. I didn't answer. I burned the letter in the backyard fire pit and watched the smoke rise into the cold Ohio sky. But I wasn't untouched either. Revenge didn't fix everything. It didn't fix the nights I woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. It didn't fix the hollow look in my eyes when I caught my reflection. It didn't fix the way trust had been gutted out of me like someone scooped my insides out with a rusty spoon. I started drinking more than I should. Stopped hanging out with friends. Stopped trusting women. For a long time, it felt like life had ended, but my body forgot to die. Now, almost 2 years later, things are better. Not great. But better. I sold the house last summer. Bought a small cabin out by Buckeye Lake. Quiet. Simple. Max and I take long walks by the water every evening. I work from home now, doing small engine repair for a living. It doesn't pay a lot. But it keeps my hands busy. And sometimes, when the sun sets just right, and Max is snoring at my feet, I feel okay. Not happy. Not healed. But okay. Maybe that's all you get after something like this. Not revenge. Not closure. Just survival. And for now, that's enough.